This morning is Milton Asimo, who is the head of underwriting operations at ICEA. Good morning.
Morning, Brian.
How are you this morning?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
This morning we're celebrating Africa. What do you like about Africa?
I think there's just a lot about Africa. First of all, in terms of the kind of brains we've got in Africa, they're just way out there. And of course, like you're wearing the fabric, I think we've got some of the best fabrics in Africa, yeah.
If I had known, I would have asked you to come in. Now, you are the odd man out. Okay. Well, Milton, many people do not understand what workers' compensation is. What exactly is that?
Okay, briefly, what I can say about workers' compensation. Workers' compensation is one of the main insurance products out there. It's an insurance plan that basically provides what you call a monetary benefit to the employer in the event that there is accidental injury, death, or disease that is work-related. I must be very clear here. It must be work-related, and it must be accidental.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a monetary benefit to it. So in the event that there's an accident, there's a bodily injury, there's a disease, then workers' compensation as an insurance product will provide that monetary benefit to take care of the expenses that could be related.
Is it just a monetary benefit? And how does, for example, the company, if anything is giving it to me, what do they benefit? And of course, me, the employee, apart from the money?
Of course, as a company, usually what happens, insurance as a product, insurance provides a peace of mind. That's one thing that we need to understand from the very beginning. Now, when it provides a peace of mind to the company, that is translated to the employee. Now, the moment the employee is actually a peace of mind, you're going to have a motivated employee. Now, the moment the employee is motivated, the productivity is definitely likely to be going up. Now, just about productivity, even the retention. So most companies are struggling with benefits and here and there and trying to retain their customers, their employees. But the most important thing is if you provide some of these benefits like workers' compensation, you'll definitely have a very motivated workforce, you'll have higher productivity. Yeah.
Who does this product cover?
Okay, of course, it covers anyone called a worker. Okay, the moment you have an establishment and there's someone you're going to define as a worker, who is a worker? A worker definitely is going to be that one person who is going to provide or perform a service in exchange for remuneration. So whoever receives a remuneration is definitely going to be covered.
Do you determine who will take the insurance? Because there are companies where, for example, temporary staff are not given insurance, or interns are not given insurance. Insurance is only limited to permanent staff. Is that?
No, that's not the case. We throw back that to the employer. The employer defines or determines who actually is going to be covered. But I must actually warn that it's much better to have everyone who is involved in work to be covered. The issue of who is temporary, permanent, I mean, the temporary employees are also working. So at the end of the day, you do not want to, again, separate who is permanent, who is temporary, who is a casual. Our advice would be that the entire workforce is catered for.
And at the time of, say, signing the agreements, as ICEA, you encourage employers to put everyone, to cover everyone?
Exactly.
Apart from this, I'm just hearing about money and you're giving money. As a worker, because I've met people, for example, in some industries and factories in Jinja who have had their hands cut off, they cannot work anymore, their legs or their toes chopped up by those machines. What other additional benefits that?
Okay, Brian, let me just, maybe a bit of additional clarification here. Why is it usually monetary? You must know that workers' compensation is a benefit policy. As compared, if you compare it to motor, where actually in motor, you actually do what you call indemnification, putting someone back into a particular position. With a bodily injury, you cannot put them into the same position. That's why the way of compensation is monetary. But getting back to your question of saying, what are the additional benefits? For instance, other than just giving them money, usually the cover has additional benefits like funeral expenses. Now, under funeral expenses, now the employer can choose to either take up a service or take the money. For instance, if we give you an extension of, say, 5 million under funeral expenses, now what would that happen is we would choose, we have a partnership with A+. Now we'd choose, do we give you a service or we give you the money? So now, and I think the trends currently is where you're actually having the employer is choosing a service. Have A+ come on board and do the funeral expenses. The funeral service and all that is all covered. That's one other benefit. For the other benefit could be, for instance, where you're actually having an employee who has actually fractured one of the bones or there's a dislocation. So what would actually happen is we provide what we call mobility or artificial appliances, or you get them clutches, and they say, okay, we want to support you through. The other benefit could be for the employer, the issue of recruitment expenses. Now, in the event of death, we actually provide some monetary money,
to the funeral.
Not to the funeral, forget about the funeral. In the event of death, actually, we are giving the employer and saying, look here, you're going to incur some expense in trying to find a replacement for the person who has died.
Oh,
okay. So those expenses, advertisement and all that would actually be covered. Yeah.
What happens in the case of permanent disability? Okay, you can cover for temporary, you know, you get me clutches and I walk around. But in case
it's permanent,
that's permanent disability, it stops me from work. As a worker, how do I benefit?
Okay, that's a good question, Brian. As a worker with permanent disability, the Act provides that you will be provided with 60 months earnings. Let's take an example. 60 months earnings. Now, let's take an example, you're earning about 10 million per month. Now, 10 million times the 12 months in a year, that would translate to how much? That's about 120 million. 120 million. 120 million times 5 years, which are the 60 months.
About 700.
About 600 million. Now, that's the kind of lump sum amount of money we will give. Now, again, we're saying it's a benefit. We will give it to you. Then how then do you get to use it?
Yeah.
Now, that is up to you. Because remember, you're going to be out of employment for that long. You're never going to work again. So the moment you give you the lump sum, then you must find maybe then investment features where you can put the money to actually make sure that you still have an income for your family. That's the benefit.
But one of the